Hey everybody, welcome back. Today's July 18th, 2019. We got a pretty big news story to decode for you today. Earlier today, it's being reported that 33 people were killed in a fire at a Japanese anime studio. Supposedly a man who was upset with the company for some reason lit the front door ablaze. Many people were trapped, could not get out, and we're being told that exactly 33 people were killed. You don't even need to be a fan of numerology to understand that the number 33 is very significant to the wealthy elite that are manufacturing propaganda on the daily and run their mainstream media by the numbers. When I talk about numbers, I'm primarily referring to the language of Gematria. This is the ancient practice of coding numbers into words. It's actually rooted in a mystical belief that the letters and words we speak carry a certain vibration, and words, phrases with the same numeric value have a hidden meaning that matches underneath. Now, I'll be straightforward. This might not be my simplest video, so if you're new to my channel, you might want to check out some of my other videos first, perhaps the video on Amazon Prime Day, for instance, which talks about corporate numerology and how corporations are practicing numerology by this code. In this video, which probably won't be that short, I'm going to discuss at length about how the Eclipse Crucifixion code is in play with this news story. News stories about death almost always are directly aligned to the dates on which total solar eclipses occur, and this is because in the New Testament, in 3 of the 4 Gospels, the story of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, darkness falls over the sky during the crucifixion, an event which many people portray to be an eclipse. Notice how this painting, Christ on the Cross, was completed in the year 1870. Using the language of letters and numbers, with the reverse alphabetic order, where Z is 1, Y is 2, X is 3, through A is 26, notice how total eclipse has a value of 18.7, or 187. Today's date, as it's written internationally, is 18/7, the 18th of July. That would include the country of Japan, where this news event took place. So I'm going to examine the Eclipse Crucifixion code at depth and how it relates to this news story. So strap in. Now, if you're new, this might be a bit much. If you've seen a lot of my videos, I might be repeating myself a little bit. But understand that this code repeats itself, and unless I'm repetitive, I'm not going to properly decode this story. Let's begin with today's date numerology. 7 plus 1 plus 8 plus 1 plus 9. I call this tiny numerology. This date sums to 26, and 26 is a number associated with fire, flame. Check this out. The words flame sums to 26 in reverse reduction. Torch, 26. The word blaze, 26. And the word burn, even 26. Not only that, but when you write out the date, July 18th, notice how it sums to 70 in reduction and 209 in the reverse alphabetic order. The word fire equals 29 and 70 in these same ciphers. Of course, the 0 ignored, so essentially these represent the same numbers. Now, I want to look a bit more closely at the date numerology because we didn't really touch on the primary numbers, and these are as significant as anything. Notice how this date has 64, 28, and 44 numerology. The word kill in Gematria sums to 44, 64, and 28, the same numbers. Now, the only number missing from the date numerology is 17. However, today's date, with the end date included, is exactly 17 days after the most recent total solar eclipse. Again, these events aligned with total eclipses. Not only that, but if you measure to the greatest natural disaster in recent Japanese history, the great earthquake and tsunami of 2011, That was exactly 100 months and 7 days ago, which also gives us the number 17. As far as the date 18/7, think about 187 as the homicide code, made famous during the 90s by a number of hip-hop groups. The word death does have this gematria in reverse, 1807. But also check out how today is the 199th day of the year. The word sacrifice sums to 46, and the 46th prime number is 199. The 46th chapter of Genesis talks about a sacrifice in the first verse. In Hebrew, kill and murder both sum to 46 as well. So already we can see that this date is prime for a death ritual, and the numerology of the date points at a fire. Now, speaking of the word fire, notice how using the standard alphabetic order, our most basic cipher, the word fire equals 38. So does the word death. 38 also appearing in the gematria of the words killing and murder. If you go to the Wikipedia page for Kyoto Animation, you find that they were established in 1981. And look at that. That's 38 years ago. The governor of the Kyoto Prefecture, where, of course, Kyoto Animation is based, is Takatoshi Nishiwaka. On this date, he's exactly 23,380 days old. Born July 15th of 1955. So right there, a 38. And Fox News, of course, one of these mainstream outlets that understands the language of gematria and codes numbers accordingly into their headlines. Notice how this headline has exception gematria of 380. So that pretty much does it for the simple numerology. Now we're going to do what I like to call a deep dive and explain how this event was coded by the Eclipse Crucifixion code. We're only scratching the surface so far, so you're about to see a lot more. So when we're talking about the Crucifixion code and the Gospels, understand that the Gospels are the first 4 books of the New Testament. The New Testament begins with the 42 generations to Jesus. In fact, the original Masonic Bibles printed with 42 lines on each page. This is being called an arson attack. If you go to Wikipedia's front page, they'll point out arson attack, right? An arson attack equals 42 in exception gematria. But notice how both Japan sums to 42, so does the word anime. Now, you may have also noticed that Japan equals 93, also anime 93. So how perfect that anime mostly comes from Japan. But anyway, this number 93 is also very significant to the code. Jesus is believed to have been crucified between 9 and 3 o'clock, 9 a.m. and 3 p.m., and it was on the 93rd day of the year. Christianity has gematria of 930. The New Testament begins with the 930th chapter of the Bible. Adam, the first man in the Bible, lived to the age of 930. In the alphabetic order, God's Son equals 93. So does the word crucifix. And Jesus was of Nazareth, 93 as well. So not only is 93 found in the gematria of Japan and anime, but let's look again at the governor of the Kyoto Prefecture, where Kyoto Animation was headquartered. He was sworn into office on the date April 16th. And the date April 16th lies exactly 93 days before July 18th, the date of this fire. So this idea of local politicians and their numerology being coded into major news events, every single video I do on a false flag or a big shooting, they all have these alignments. Go back and pick any one of my videos from the last year, and you'll see me doing the same thing. So as we scroll down, we find that they were interviewing the president of Kyoto Animation. And I probably shouldn't speculate too much here, but you would think a man who just lost 33 of his employees would be a little emotionally shooken, and I don't see any tears in his eyes. He's on camera giving interviews the same day, which is a little weird. And of course, different people cope differently. I guess we shouldn't get too much into that, but I will look at the numbers. And what I want to point out about this man is how Hideaki Hata, the president of Kyoto Animation, his name sums to 227 using the reverse alphabetic order. This ties into the Eclipse Crucifixion code, which sums to 227 and the 227th prime number. You may have also noticed that Hideaki Hata sums to 74 in reverse reduction. This is the same as Jesus Christ. The name Jesus on its own sums to 74 in ordinal. As far as the 227, this is a prime number, the 49th prime number. He's the president of Kyoto Animation, and Kyoto equals 49 in that same method of calculation. I'm going to pop open another cipher, a large cipher called English Extended. And you'll see this is also based on the alphabetic order, but it uses the ancient Hebrew Gematria and Greek isopsephy charts for structure. Notice how Kyoto Animation gives us a value of 1,460. Using the reverse alphabetic order, this is the Gematria of Jesus Christ, 146. Now, in the Bible, we're told that Jesus was crucified at age 33 under an eclipse. The word eclipse equals 33, and crucifixion of Jesus Christ equals 303. This company, Kyoto Animation, is also known as KyoAni for short, and KyoAni also summing to 33 in reverse. This building, the victim of an arson attack, which sums to 33. So, we see the symbolism. Kyoto Animation, a numeric representation of Jesus Christ himself. Well, if you measure from the date of this fire to the date of the next total solar eclipse, which occurs on December 14th, 2020, this will be the Patagonia eclipse, look how it's been exactly 515 days. And in that same English extended method, the name Jesus sums to 515. On this other screen, you also saw something called Jewish Gematria. This is another very significant cipher based in the ancient Latin alphabetic order. And you'll see the more modern English characters that were added later are placed at the end. Well, I want to point out how Kyoto equals 610 in this method. And it was the crucifix that represents the death of Jesus. In fact, Jesus equals 61 in reverse. Kyoto Prefecture is in the Kansai region of Japan. Japan divided into regions first and then prefectures from there. Notice how Kansai equals 151? Well, that's the Gematria of Jesus Christ using the alphabetic order. And perhaps this is a coincidence, but Japanese anime fire sums to 151 as well. Wow, also notice the 308. This building is 38 years old. Fire equals 38. But what's so fascinating about this number in relation to this event, 151 is the 36th prime number. And how many people did they say were injured in this blaze? That's right, 36 injured. So you see where this number comes from. We talked about the 33. Jesus died at 33. Jesus Christ equals the 36th prime number. In Sumerian Gematria, in fact, Kansai equals 330. There's a number of other alignments here. Kansai region equals 123, so does arson attack. And in reduction, crucifixion of Jesus Christ equals 123. There's also a Sumerian overlap with Kyoto Anime Studio, but that's not terribly significant. So again, we're talking about crucifixion darkness and how the death of Jesus is a numeric representation of the eclipse of the sun, Jesus the Son of God. In Jewish Gematria, the sun equals 443. The headline that Fox News gave us sums to 344 in reduction, the inverse of this number. This event occurred in the city of Uji, Kyoto Prefecture, Kansai, Japan, which I believe is how you officially write this. Let's see. I know I saw this somewhere for certain. Kyoto Prefecture, Kansai, Japan. You know, you can say I'm playing with numbers if you want, but look, there's a 443 right there. And if you saw my video on the Angels Mariners game, you understand how the number 173 is a huge part of the Eclipse code as well. As Jesus screamed, "Eli, Eli," during the crucifixion, and Eli is the number 173 upside down. Okay, so to start wrapping this video up, I'm going to talk about the basis of the Eclipse crucifixion code, and this post here about the number 1331 is linked below. This is one of my most educational and important posts. Now, long before we found out about this eclipse in the year 1331, I had already identified the number 1331 as a significant eclipse number. And it turns out, in the year 1331, there was one total solar eclipse. And to this very day, this eclipse is the only one I've ever seen whose path of totality never touches a major body of water. This is incredibly rare, and it's almost impossible for a path of totality not to touch water. You know, 70% of the Earth's surface in water, and any potential eclipse path, this can't happen in North America. There's not enough land. The path has to be this exact path almost for this to work. So looking at Jewish Gematria, the date of that eclipse, November 30th, look at this. It sums to 1331 in Jewish Gematria. Of course, back in the year 1331, Latin would have been the dominant language, so it makes sense that we're using the Latin cipher. In the same method, 1331 eclipse equals 1331. The word eclipse even has 3 numbers in it. 3173 when flipped upside down. I point this out at the end of this post. Of course, you have the word Eli in there too, right? It's interesting. But 3173 sums to 1331. This has to do with the spelling of our numbers as well. As we've been talking about, the word eclipse equals 33 in reduction. And think about how the number 1331 is the intersection of two 33s between the numbers 133 and 331. Well, would you believe this? 133 equals 1331. 331 equals 1331, as if these two numbers are merging together to create a 1331. It's obvious, this eclipse symbolism here. Now, as we mentioned, this eclipse in 1331 was on November 30th. November 30th is the 334th day on the Gregorian calendar. The phrase solar eclipse equals 433, the reverse of 344. The governor of Kyoto, on the date of this event, born 7/15/55, he was a span of exactly 3,340 weeks old. So this sort of points us at the date November 30th, right? Now here's where it gets really crazy. If you actually measure to the date November 30th, 1331, to the date of this fire, you get what we call a palindromic number. 251152. And 251 is not just any number. The phrase ritual sacrifice equals 251 in reverse. And think about how ritual human sacrifice in Jewish Gematria sums to 895. Jesus died at 33, 895. This was after his betrayal by Judas, 895. Even the name Jesus equals 985. So look what happens here. You type in palindromic number. Now, what is a palindromic number? This is a number that looks the same both forwards and backwards. And interestingly enough, total solar eclipse sums to 202, which is a palindromic number. Palindromic number in Gematria sums to 3 different palindromic numbers. 88, which is the same forwards and backwards. 272, the same forwards and backwards. And 101. The only number in the base ciphers that is not palindromic is 187. And what's today's date? The 18th of July. 18/7. So this is pretty wild. I think this is definitely a huge part of it. So the governor of Kyoto, if we measure using years and days, we find that he's exactly 64 years and 3 days old on the date of this fire. Next, we're going to look at Shinzo Abe, who is the Prime Minister of Japan. So just like the United States, we look at the governor of the state and then the president sometimes, more often the mayor. In this case, here we are, the Prime Minister and the governor. Well, Shinzo Abe was born on September 21st of 54. And he's 64 years and 300 days old. So both of these men's ages give us the number 643. Now, 643 is a prime number. That would be the 117th prime number. (117) has factorization of 13 times 3 times 3. These are ritualistic numbers. But maybe more interesting is that 13 equals 117. 13, the primary ritual and hoax code. And notice how 13 equals 99. Kyoto animation fire equals 990. This fire occurred on the date July 18th, which sums to 169. And the square root of 169 is 13. There was something else significant that I found that I want to share. Where was it? I'll have to come back to this. Now, so we're talking about this number 13 and how significant this is, right? When you write out 13, it has the same gematria as the Prime Minister, Shinzo Abe, 99, 45, and 45. The suspect in this case was 41 years old. And 41 is the 13th prime number. The governor of Kyoto is named Nishiwaki, which equals 103. Shinzo Abe's birthday has 103 numerology. Now, when we're talking about the number 103, this could refer to total lunar eclipse. Because it's not just solar eclipses that these events are related to, it's also lunar eclipses at times. Now, if you measure from the date of this fire to the date of the next total lunar eclipse, you get a span of 1 year, 313 days, like the number 1313. Notice how total lunar eclipse equals 203 in ordinal. Kyoto Prefecture equals 203 in ordinal. And in reverse, Kyoto Prefecture equals 202, which points us at how this is also related to total solar eclipses, 202 in ordinal. So guys, what are the odds that an event that's so perfectly aligned with these eclipses, even the 1331 eclipse, actually kills exactly 33 people, injuring 36? That means 69 people, or 69 casualties, right? Eclipse equals 69. Do you see what they're doing? It's ridiculous. I mean, I just hope nobody really died, but you can't put past it, anything past these people. These are the same group who carried out the 9/11 attacks. And I know there's some crazies in the community who say nobody died on 9/11, but that's a bunch of crap. You can't convince me they took down those buildings with all those firefighters entering them and not kill anybody. They killed a lot of people on 9/11. So if this is what happened here, then, how terrible is that? Oh, check out the 42-second clip, too. I talked about that number. I talked about a lot of numbers, but, once you look at the alignments of the officials, the eclipse dates, that's where it becomes very obvious that this code is in play. And recently I did a decode on the death of Ernest. So check this out, right? So back in 2000, the man who played Ernest P. Worrell died of cancer. His name was Jim Varney. And in the largest ciphers available, which is square numbers on my website, notice how the name Ernest equals 1331, right? So I noticed this and thought, oh, maybe he died in relation to the 1331 eclipse, which was on November 30th of 1331. Well, if you look at the date Jim Varney died, February 10th, 2000, look at this. Now, in ordinal, Ernest equals 81, both forwards and backwards. He died 8,018 months and 11 days after that eclipse. Now, I will say, if you count backwards instead and not forwards, my date calculator starts at November 30th and goes forward. However, if you were to go backwards from this date, you would instead get 8,018 months and 10 days, which is 8181, which is basically the Gematria of Ernest, right? So to this day even, it appears as if people are still being sacrificed or being removed from the mainstream in relation to this particular eclipse. Another thing I recently did a video on was Ken Jennings, the Jeopardy contestant, who won 74 straight games. His streak ended on the date November 30th, 2004. That's our famous eclipse date, right? That was exactly 673 years after that eclipse. And notice how 673 is the 122nd prime number. Jeopardy equals 122. And that's only the start of that. I mean, this was a massive ritual. He won 74 straight games. Remember, Jesus equals 74. He died on the cross, 74. Messiah, 74. Gospel. The word streak equals 74. But what really gave this away is that the phrase winning streak equals 1331. So, yes, folks, again, this is the basis of the code. It's just a matter of getting in front of it and making perfect predictions. Like this community is getting close. We know significant events about when they're happening. We know the whereabouts, technically, sometimes of where they're happening. But as far as exact things, we need some real good database technology to be able to get in front of anything, because there's no way this is an organic event. If it did really happen and people really did die, then it would be my belief that there's some other type of action at play here, whether it's spellcasting or something. But that's way beyond the means of this video. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for this video. Thanks to everyone who jumped in. There's not that much for me to go through, but it's pretty interesting stuff. So I don't know. I mean, we're starting to crack the code. If you look back at well, okay, my first YouTube channel was deleted, but if you were to look back at those videos, you would see I had almost no idea what I was doing. I knew something was going on with these numbers, with the dates of eclipses, but throughout time, we've gotten much better at identifying exactly the basis of the code, and it's almost impossible to get anything past me now as far as, major death rituals and this numeric code at play. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Thanks to everybody who jumped in and suffered through all those numbers with me. It's a tough process to go through at first, but it's well worth it in the end. Being awake is one of the greatest gifts that you can be given in this world. So, it's a crazy world, and we just need to make some sense of it, and this helps us get a little closer. All right, guys. Peace, love, God bless. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon. See ya!